Gabriel Muñoz,
And I'm Jade Dubuche.
and we're here to talk to some of our fellow editors about the current state of student journalism. We're here with Ben Leynse, news editor.
Hi, I'm Ben Leynse. I started out as a reporter, and now I lead the beat focusing on issues and resources at The Sun. So that's anything on campus relating to protests, campus and Cornell resources, or also international students and anything like that.
And Zeinab Faraj.
Hi, I'm Zeinab Faraj. I'm the features editor. So I work with news, sports, and science, and we write investigative pieces, but also personal pieces about everything on campus.
Thank you both for taking the time to talk to us, Jay. Jade and I came up with this idea while we were trying to film one of our videos of Sun on the Street. So that's when we go out on campus and talk to students about their opinions of certain issues that are affecting the campus community.
So essentially, we were asking students about their opinions on Cornell's recent settlement with the government. And though we had no shortage of students who had opinions and wanted to talk to us, the issue really arose when we tried to get them to voice those opinions on camera.
Yeah, many came up to us and were willing even to voice their opinions on the settlement and kind of talk to us through their reasonings for those opinions. However, out of 4 days of shooting, we only got one student to agree to be on camera with us.
So we thought we would bring this talk to two of our experts. Ben and Zeinab, you've both written articles about student reporting and talking about different controversial topics going on campus. So we wanted to get your opinions on this.
Yeah, and to do so, we prepared a list of questions just to get a sense of what you feel student journalism is like today and your job, really, your day-to-day as editors for The Sun. So to kick this off, I think the first thing that I would like to talk about is what's your experience gathering sources lately?
I can start on this. As both a writer and as an editor, I think one word to describe it is difficult. I'll have writers go out with a story idea and send out 20 emails and then tell me that they've received no replies or, have people do reply and they reply at length, but then are hesitant to respond. And so really you're kind of just left saying, all right, where do I go from there? That's the main thing, that a writer will come up to me and say, all right, I've done all this outreach. What can I do, further if no one wants to speak with me on the record?
And when you guys have gotten those responses, how have the recent controversies on campus contributed to how people respond to you guys and the way they answer questions?
Yeah, so following the news of the settlement, I wrote a piece of just kind of compiling reactions from students, faculty, and even alumni groups. And it was a difficult thing to source, particularly because the issue of losing research funding was so fresh. And then I also heard people worried about maintaining their relationships with the federal government going forward now that research funding had been resumed. I reached out to a number of faculty members that had research that was ongoing and then was cut because of a stop work order, and really my ability to include their perspective was limited because of the fact that they just weren't willing to speak on the record or have their name attached to a controversial issue like the recent settlement deal.
Yeah, and it's not only controversial pieces that people are afraid to speak about. I mean, we've tried to do some coverage on international students who are afraid of their own safety, that don't want to go on the record, or afraid of job outlook and how it's going to look if they were speaking out against Trump or or Cornell.
Yeah, there's really, in many degrees, there's people are much more conscious of thinking for the future of how might this be tied back to me later, and it's just it's a real fear that people have surrounding what is the weight of my words now and how will it affect me later.
Yeah, and what do you think the responsibility is of student journalism in a moment where you have sources that are so hesitant, where you have public discourse that is so limited by our own populations, right? Our own students, our own researchers, professors, and how can student journalism still form dialogue in that space?
I think the number one thing, responsibility of a student journalist and of a student newspaper is transparency. I know we've been using anonymous sources more just because people are less willing to speak on the record, but that's something we need to communicate to our audiences of, all right, we're using an anonymous source. Why are we doing that? What's the reason we're doing that for? And also what's the value of it? And the value of it is our ability to still report on issues that are contentious and to bring our community, the needed news that they want and that they come to us for. We can't let the fact that something is controversial or that there's not a lot of interest in it to affect our ability to report on things. But we need to also share with our community what's the background steps that we're doing about why we allow anonymity and things like that.
Yeah, and I know, Ben, you touched on how that impacts the story and like how it impacts what our readers get to see. And how do you think long term, like how do you think this is going to impact the way that news is given to the public and the way that people engage with what they're reading?
I think, if you get a piece from the news and every other source is anonymous, you begin to approach it with a little bit more, with more skepticism. That's exactly it. Of this, kind of questioning of, if I don't know who this is, how can I trust what they say? And on the one hand, I want to say that, like, as an editor, we take granting anonymity very serious, and on our end, we do a lot of work to assure the identity of the person to, we know who they are and will protect their confidentiality, but we need to verify that their statements are true. And none of that kind of fact checking that goes into writing a news story changes when we use anonymous sources. But in terms of an image thing, it does leave the public wondering, where am I getting this news from, and can I trust it?
Going off of that, how do you think the Sun can meet the moment and reassure our readers that we are doing our due diligence as a newspaper?
Yeah, I think that our reporters and our editors are finding different and more creative ways to source for pieces. I can give an example for a piece we wrote about international students and how they're feeling about their safety and their job outlook. We had to use maybe more unconventional ways to find sources. Like, one of the writers used Reddit to find an international student, and they met and they were willing to talk because the person felt that meeting in person was an easier and safer way for them to express their opinions. And additionally, the Sun's reporting has evolved to not only encompass all of the different situations that are happening on campus, but to also go into depth about them. So we'll report on a breaking issue, but then we'll go into depth. And we're trying to find sources who are credible to speak and also are willing to speak.
Yeah, I just want to really echo that point of the creativity with which we as reporters bring to the job of, all right, if the conventional way of I'm going to send an email to a club or I'm going to send an email to a group of students doesn't work, how can I still find that story? And you do find that there are people that want to speak about something or are passionate about it. And so it just changes the work we do of how do we find information and how do we find new information that we don't normally find.
And like on that note, what role do you see that we should be playing in these key moments?
Yeah, I mean, student journalism is crucial to national journalism, and it's our stories and what happens here at Cornell or at other institutions that feed into the national news and also feed into the narratives about, the Trump administration or what's happening to international students. So student journalists have a responsibility of not only informing their communities about the issues that are occurring, but also to spotlight their voices that eventually become the national voices.
Yeah, it's exactly that. Student journalism makes national news, and it's our university that is in the national headlines. And so, I wrote a piece about like Mamadou Tall, and I know Gabriel, you also covered Mamadou Tall. That story became national news because of the reporting first done in The Sun. And then that brings me to another point, which is we need to do that reporting, and then we need to have, a treasure trove of previous reporting we've done, because it's really, at the end of the day, it's a history making. We're the first draft of history, and it's important to, make clear that this happened at this point in time, and really enter it into the historical records. If we don't do it, no one else will. And that's the line that it comes to.
And our reporting is non-biased, so you're going to get the full facts, all of the perspective, and nothing else.
And adding to that, if you were to imagine a future where journalism didn't fit that space in which people can have conversations and express dissent or difference about a certain topic, a certain issue, what do you see our interactions as people, as college students, looking like in that sort of environment?
I think it would be a slow change, but what it'd be is that you'd start to forget things. You'd start to forget what the actions taken by students 5 years ago were. And if there's no, student journalism on campus, there's no way to, know that, 5 years ago, someone from this group of people were very, passionate about this cause, or that the university did, this, 3 years ago. And without student journalists, constantly getting perspectives and, pressing people for, all right, so what are you standing for? What's important to you? Things kind of happen and you don't even realize they happen. Without someone to shine a spotlight on the actions of the university, of students, of anything like that. One of America's greatest and largest universities kind of will act without anyone looking at it, and that's a dangerous thing.
Yeah, on top of that, news articles elicit change. So when we report on something, sometimes it can put pressure on something else to happen, or it can also inform the public that something is occurring and maybe more people can work towards that cause. So an example of my own reporting was over the summer, there was a group, they're called the McClintock Letters, and they were all about sending letters to their local papers in order to voice, this is what my research is about, it got cut, or this is what my research is about, it deserves to continue. And so when we wrote an article about that, they saw an uptick in the amount of letters that they received. So not only are you preserving a true historical record of what's happening on and off campus, but you're also allowing for change to happen, and you're putting pressure where pressure may need to be put.
The ability for newspapers to enact change is really understated. And another example I'd bring up is what happened with international students last semester when we were seeing, visas and more specifically SEVIS records being revoked.
Terminated, yeah.
And we heard news that they were being revoked, but the university refused to, give us numbers on that. And I remember writing a story on that, and then just 2 days later, or maybe one day, we had an update and we had the full number of students that were affected. So it's about getting clarity on information.
Yeah, and as a Cornell student, you deserve to know what's going on at Cornell, or if you are a resident of Ithaca, you deserve to know what's going on around Ithaca.
And I know it's no secret that this has been an ongoing difficulty for not just us, but for collegiate newspapers across the country. Are there any last words that you would like to give to students who are hesitant to talk to us and any other student newspaper?
I would just say, your voice matters. And if you want to see change on some sort of issue, or if you feel that a certain issue isn't being spoken about enough, that's where you come in. No one else will speak for you. It's a choice that you have to make, and it can be a scary one. But if you do, we're here to hear it and to represent it accurately, and to show it to the rest of the university. And that's a really important thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone at this table can say that the Sun is very open to working with any student, any person at all that has a story or has an issue that they want to give a platform to.
Yeah, and I would like to echo that and say that truly, I feel like the Sun is a place where you can really have any person and any story be told, just like our university. So I think, even in my experience working as a news editor, I have worked with a lot of people who have had their stories told because of the Sun, and that have had some sort of closure or opportunity to at least make sure that their voices are heard, not only by us as reporters, but for the university community to hear what they really have to say. And I think that's a really important pocket that we can feel on campus.
Thank you guys so much for talking to us about your reporting and your experiences with these really pressing issues right now.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having us.